And thank you for waiting today. We were having some technical issues in the background, but we got that all figured out. I want to thank everyone for joining today's virtual educational program with Cancer Support Community Los Angeles. I am Edlyn Rodarte, and I am the program coordinator at CSCLA. I'm excited to welcome you to this week's webinar titled, A Guide to the End of Life, A Death from a Doula's Perspective. In the final part of A Guide to the End of Life series, Rica Castroll will cover pragmatic tips on lessening one's fear and anxiety surrounding the end of life by getting organized. She will speak about wrapping up affairs, the importance of naming a healthcare surrogate decision maker, and advanced care planning and thoughts on how to leave behind a legacy that is meaningful. Before we begin, if this is your first time joining us, Cancer Support Community Los Angeles is a premier nonprofit organization providing vital social and emotional support to families facing cancer, including patients, caregivers, and loved ones, all at no cost. Our programs include support groups, healthy lifestyle classes, social activities, and educational programs such as this one. If you'd like to learn more about our services or watch past webinars, please visit our website at www.cancersupportla.org. Before I introduce today's speaker, please note that we cannot see or hear you. Your video and microphone are automatically disabled for this webinar. We will not be monitoring the chat room, but you may enter your questions into the Q&A feature at any time. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. We may not be able to get to all your questions today, but our presenter is invited to share their contact information at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome today's speaker, Rica Castroll, the program administrator in value-based oncology with 15 years of experience in cancer program management, as well as a past cancer tumor registrar and death doula. Rica's roles have given her an inside look at the management of disease process, what to speak to the clinical team about, as well as basic pragmatic questions on how to navigate the end of life. Rica is passionate about a good death and helping families and patients come to terms with the end. Welcome, Rica. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Edlyn. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Let me go ahead and share.
Welcome, everybody. I can't see you, but thank you for coming on this rainy and beautiful day in LA on voting day, November 8th. As Edlyn introduced, this is a practical guide to the end of life, and I am a death doula, and this is my perspective. I'm Rica Castroll. I'm a cancer registry registrar and master of public health. Next slide. So high-level agenda. I'll give a small introduction to me, what a death doula is, naming names, wrapping up affairs, legacy building, and we'll do a quick in closing. Next slide. So about me, I work here at Cedars-Sinai. I'm a program administrator for value-based care initiatives. That just means I do value care over more care. I focus on ICU deaths and things of that nature, and I support my team that way. I was previously a registrar, cancer tumor registrar, and I worked at NYU Langone for a while. And I became interested in the role of the death doula in 2007, where I began sort of learning about it. At the time, it wasn't very well known. researching, and in 2018, I took a program to become a certified death doula. There is no such thing, but you can do a formal training. I'm a mother, a daughter, a friend, an ex-wife, a girlfriend, and I'm 100% human, which is all to say that I too will die one day. So what is a death doula? I can't see hands or anything, but I believe we have a poll in the next slide. So please vote for practice your voting right. Yes, very good. The majority of you have heard of what a death doula is. 59% of you, 41% of you haven't. So for everyone, I will go through it. Next slide. So death doulas are sometimes called midwives, death doulas, end of life guide, a dying guide, a transition coach. I like to think of us as the human version of the disruptive transformers of healthcare. We're non-medical persons, so we're not nurse. Well, some of us are, but for the most part, we're non-medical persons who are trained to take care of a person holistically, which is to say their emotions, their physical bodies, as well as their spiritual bodies at the end of life. We empower people and the dying families through this process. We're part of a big death positive community. We believe that death is natural and sacred, and it should be accepted and embraced and an honored part of one's life. We're here to suggest optimal ways to increase comfort, and we help the dying plan as well as hold space for a person in the end of their life if you choose to have us do that. So 3 main holistic ways we support our patients or those who we work with. We help with legacy building, which is to say that being born and dying is pretty easy. It's everything in between that happens that can be problematic and that would end up being your legacy. Presence and holding space. Anxiety is natural for those who are approaching the end of their life. I mean, anxiety is also natural in everyday life. None of us have walked this path before, and so having somebody who is familiar with the end of life or that territory helps build comfort in that area. And dignity, my final supportive way, is we all deserve a positive experience when we pass, and we each have values and traditions and beliefs that can influence how we die and what we envision of how this might happen or occur. And we'd like to help people create an environment that supports the dying person, and their wish is basically our goal. Naming names. So this is for those of you who are, I'm not old enough, although naming names was part of the Hollywood blacklist. And since I am located in LA, I do hearken back to those days of Hollywood. Name and document your support team. So who are those people that you trust that have offered support to you? It is the time to make those persons known, as they are your most trusted allies and your advocates. And choosing these people and these persons, whether they're family or blood or non-blood or your neighbor, whomever they may be, is one of the most important decisions you can make. And for those of you who have accepted the offer, it's an honor and it should be treated as such. These next 2 bullet points are documents and words to describe some important documents that you will have to know about if you don't know about them already. So your healthcare proxy or your medical power of attorney, and these are words to describe a document that gives somebody the power to act on your behalf. This is triggered if you are unable to do so on your own behalf. And an advance directive, which is a document to avoid unnecessary suffering and relieve your team of decision-making burdens. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Living will or goals of care. So these are 3 questions that I find are helpful to gain clarity on some important decisions for life support, pain management, and the use of prolonged life support, as well as resuscitation. So in thinking of your goals of care or one's goals of care, what values make your life worth living? Is it being able to walk your dog? Is it feeding your child? Is it being able to have your morning cup of coffee? What is it that makes you value your time here? Or second, what condition is worse than dying? Everybody has their own ideas on what that might look like, your end of days. Some people would prefer to have everything and anything done, whether they know it or not. Some people would prefer to exit this life quietly, comfortably, and naturally. Everybody has their own vision on that, and everyone's decision on that is completely respectful and honored. Finish this sentence. I want to live as long as I can, ... So as long as you can, what? What makes your life worth living or continue to live? Next slide. Wrapping up affairs. So this list is pretty overwhelming for everybody or anybody, even people who are organized and who have wrapped up their affairs. But the affairs of the point is that the affairs of your life are important, and only you are the best person who knows where all of this stuff is kept and where it is and how to access it and all of that. So this is basically a list of things that you should collect and share with those that you've identified as your team. I would find if you're good at technology, or if you can have a friend or your neighbor or kid or whomever help you to photocopy them, perhaps scan them into a drive on your computer. That's highly encouraged to keep everything in one place. Would be very helpful. So social security numbers and any of the dependents that you have, if you have to request social security numbers for those people, etc. Your birth certificate, that will be important for dependent children of the deceased. Banks, credit unions, make a list of what you've got. You may have to identify somebody who can withdraw money. There are things called the payable upon death that could be added to your account. Divorce papers are helpful if you're closing out affairs, and it can absolutely affect your beneficiaries should a proof of divorce is not available. Proof of citizenship or your alien status if you're applying for government benefits. Insurance policies, your car, your life insurance if you've got it, long-term health. I said long-term car, it's a mistake. If you're renting or you're owning your home, and your health insurance. These are all very important. Retirement, if you've got an IRA or anything like that. Ownership, what do you have? What do you own that could possibly be transferred or named to somebody? Your car, maybe your home, depends, whatever you have. If you're lucky to have a safe deposit box to store your treasured items, to name people who can access that. And if you're not a joint renter, you've got to bring a certificate, usually like a death certificate, to access it. And just a note on this, that even though one person may have access to a safe deposit box, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have access or you can own the contents of that box. That contents of the box may be spoken for in a will, the person's will. There are things called legacy settings. Every phone has one. iPhone has one. Android, I'm sure, has one. But essentially, if you don't know the person's code for their phone, you can access you will have a special access passcode to get into that person's phone. I'm not sure what the timing is on that, but legacy settings basically offer permission to that person in advance. Plans for death certificates or a copy of your death certificate. Sometimes you can plan this stuff in advance, like who will get one and what mailing address it will come to. That's for those of us who are super proactive. A few things to do after a passing. Notify the Social Security Administration, both number 1 and 2. There's a tremendous amount of identity theft happening now for persons who have passed. The best thing to do is to notify these individuals and credit bureaus to allow your name to basically be closed, and for people not to be able to open accounts in your name, take credit cards out in your name, etc. Of course, these are things that will happen once you've gone, but it will, if for those of us who know about this, it will help sort of limit some of the collateral damage after a person's passing. I have created an open list of my accounts and passwords. I have that all saved. Even my email accounts, my bank accounts, passwords on my phone, things like that. Important to notify the bank. It's important to notify all of your insurance, any insurance policies that you've had. And one thing also that you can do is you can, for the person for those left behind or caretakers of the home or anything like that, you can have that USPS, you can notify them of your death and begin to forward mail. I'm not sure if any of you experienced sort of seeing a house where the person has passed, and you see sort of the gardener stop coming and the piles of mail and newspapers sort of, and that sort of creates unwanted attention for your neighbors and possibly people who are up to no good. I have listed 3 piles of accounts, three kinds of mail, which is accounts, meaning subscriptions, accounts like bank accounts, and the last one, which I assume for most of us is trash and junk mail, so just advertisements. A reminder for a pause, because I tend to go too fast. How is everybody feeling? I can't hear you, but I'd love for everybody to take a deep breath, because I need one. Take a little inventory. Yes, does anybody have anything on their mind? If so, you can start writing them in the chat. You can make a note to ask me. I'll also be giving you my information if you want to email me in the end, but sort of get moving and get thinking about things on your mind before we move on. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay. Last but not least, I believe, is legacy building. I think I have my own notes here. Yes, okay. So everyone leaves something behind. This isn't optional. Memories, children, work, feelings, stuff. Legacy just isn't, it's not just about your things, it's how you made people feel when you were around. And creating a legacy is about continuing those bonds. It's advice to loved ones. It's living in a way that would make a loved one proud. It's partaking in rituals that you shared. These are all examples of legacies. A death doula can help you create tangible ways to be remembered, and even can help help somebody plan how they may die. There are things called life reviews, which are essentially an oral history that you can sort of create your own legacy and leave that behind. We've all read about stories for those young persons who leave behind children, to make voice recordings for their kids' birthdays and things like that to leave behind in the future. You can write down your story if you're able to. You can have somebody else write it down for you. You can create voice recordings. You can make photo albums, either digital or in real life, if you've got the time, energy, or know-how. You can make video messages. And my personal favorite would be a playlist. You can make playlists for people. You can make playlists for your own funeral, if music is important to you. So making meaning isn't for everybody. It's important to note that for some, life has no meaning and we live in a purposeless existence. And that's 100%, 1000% okay. Some people are not here to leave and create cozy feelings, etc. They're here they just landed here, and that's fine. For those of us who have religion in their lives or who are religious, how does your religion and how does the religion see death? And are there rituals that you can incorporate into this end legacy? So how does this talk make us feel? There are these terms, preemptive and anticipatory grief. These are terms that are about, you're forward thinking, so you're sort of grieving backward. Because you're thinking of all this stuff, you're sort of grieving, but presently. I like to say that I'm nostalgic for my current days, knowing that one day I'll miss them in the future. So in thinking of all this, even the planned fun things, it's normal to feel all the emotions that I've listed out there: irritable, dread, guilt, anxious, depressed, denial, withdrawal, sad. I think I said rage or angry. Okay, all of those. This is what they call the existential nudge. And there are many resources that can help with these feelings. I think in last time we met in the second course, the social worker had spoken about meaning-centered psychotherapy. So you can kind of think about these things, think about the things that these trigger points, and think things about items that you want to discuss, things that are sore. Guided meditations. There's several apps for this. There's groups that meet all over the LA. There's all kinds of resources for meditation. Hypnosis can help with some of these feelings and anxiety. Pharmaceuticals, of course. I have my own personal favorites for anxiety, no comment. And alternative medicine. So there's a tremendous amount of literature suggesting or giving some new therapies like microdosing, certain psychoactive drugs like LSD or magic mushrooms or psilocybin. I am not asking you to go against the law. I'm just saying that there are things that exist that can help ease some of these feelings in ayahuasca. So this is a pretty exhaustive list. This could make anybody feel lots of ways, but these are just a list that I hope you guys can take away and use. They're things that will help your mind and the conversation get going on your life. What have been your most meaningful relationships? If you go by decade, what are some of the lessons that you learned? What are some of the expressions did you often use? What are your hobbies, your favorite hobbies? How did you spend your free time? Do you like music? Do you like exercise? Do you like to read, cook, hike? Who did you love? How many loves did you have? How did you deal with some of the challenges you faced in your life? How would you like to be remembered? What are you most proud of for yourself? Share that with your family. Share that with anybody who'll listen. What decisions had the most impact on your life? I know what some of mine are. And in what form would you like your legacy to live on? Meaning like human, animal, a policy that you helped leave behind. Legacy could be anything. These are some quotes that I always found comforting when I think about death, death or dying. These are some of my favorite writers. Murakami, death is not the opposite of life, it's a part of it. Lorca said, those who are afraid of death will carry it on their shoulders, which is to say through your life, if you're constantly afraid of it, it's going to be a pretty heavy load through your days. Asimov, famous science fiction writer, life is pleasant, death is peaceful, it's the transition that's troublesome, and life changes in the instant, the ordinary instant. And that's from Joan Didion. I was going to say one thing about some of this, which is, well, I can say it in closing, it's fine, thank you. Here are some of the books that I mentioned. Be Here Now, which is one of my favorites. Die Wise, which was written by a social worker, Stephen Jacobson. A Beginner's Guide to the End, which was written by B.J. Miller. If you guys are unsure who that is, you should look him up. He's got a TED Talk that might blow your mind. A very death positive person and very, very spiritual, Zen sort of based. And Joan Didion, who died last year in December, she had two tragedies that sort of influenced me majorly. Well, her writing on those tragedies inspired me. So, in closing, wow, we have so much time. This means a big Q&A. Naming names. So in closing, what I wanted to say was that all of these things that I've listed are essentially ways, rather than feeling helpless, knowing that the end may be near, or that you've received some bad news or a bad diagnosis or whatever it is, some of these things that I've mentioned are ways to make you feel less helpless and more empowered, and know that the way that I see it is for those of us who have a diagnosis or have sort of time, I find that to be a luxury. Not all of us are granted time or a diagnosis or something that may or may not end our lives. Sometimes death happens in a tragedy where you have no preparation for, you just are here one day and gone the next. And those sort of tragic endings are much harder to prepare for, obviously, which is why I think a lot of these tools that I've given for those of us who are healthy or have the bandwidth or want to, can prepare for all of those things and know that, God forbid, should something happen, you're leaving behind a little bit of less of a burden on those that you've left behind. You've left them information, you've left them ways to access things, you've left them a key to your safe deposit box. So use your time well. Be here now, but also use your time to do the things that you choose to do. Legacy building, if you can, why not get focused on what matters to you? An attempt to find comfort in the uncomfortable. I know for many of us, it's just so easy to ignore and deny and push it away and not go there. But sometimes going there can actually be very productive and proactive, and that can actually make you feel better. There are lots of resources. I can help you with them, or I've listed them, or you can Google them and talk about it, or don't. Anything you choose is okay. Thank you. I'm Rica. This is an email that you can reach me at if you have things that you'd like to follow up with, or anything like that.
Thank you, Rica. Thank you so much for that presentation, for informing us what a death doula is. I know myself personally, I wasn't too familiar, but all this information I know it's really great. We do have questions that came through. So let's go ahead and get started. Somebody asked, where does the name doula originate from, if you know?
Well, I don't know the Latin term word doula, but I think it began with birth doulas. I'm sure everyone's heard of a birth doula, which is, I would say it's more than a non-medical person. It's a person who is equipped to help someone give birth, or a woman give birth. They're basically midwives. So I can look it up. Doula. But I think it's like, basically the word is like a chaperone, or a person who, not a shepherd, but I think you know what I mean. What's interesting about the death doula, the entire idea, I think, and for me, I remember when I first heard the word, I asked my father if I could go to a program where I could learn more about becoming a death doula, and he told me that that was too sad and too depressing, and I should focus on birth, becoming a birth doula. And I thought, I don't think there's anything more boring than birth. It's just like, it just happens. You can do it in the woods. It doesn't really take much. Their babies have no true memories. I think it's really much more meaningful to help somebody who's got history.
Thank you. Somebody asked, are doula services free, covered by insurance, or private funded?
So this is very important. Because there's no national certification to become a death doula, there's no what we call billing for a death doula, which means that the government or CMS will not cover these expenses. It's not part of your health plan. It's completely out of pocket. Every doula can charge whatever they feel like for a package, or for whatever services they've given a family or a person. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. I think as time goes by, and perhaps as services like this become more widely accepted or necessary, perhaps in time, maybe they will. But because there's no national way to certify somebody who does this, I don't think there's a way to, we're not there yet. We will be.
This is just a comment. This said, things I need to know, good presentation. So that was
great.
Yeah. And then we have somebody here. She stated, my brother has been unwilling to discuss most of the practical issues around his death, and I unwillingly to press him. The only thing I have been able to complete is a durable power of attorney. He has very little, but I am not on his bank account. Any advice as to how to encourage him to act on this?
Yeah, I mean, that is a difficult place to be. And I think just showing your support for him in whatever he wants to leave or help or do or anything. I mean, maybe just set it aside and just forget it, and just spend time and just let him know that he is safe, that you love him, or don't, or whatever. Let him know that you're there, and whatever it is, sort of, I think it's just a gentle, it's a gentle path. And maybe he's suffering from some tremendous depression. Maybe there are things that you can help him with to feel lighter when it comes to all of this stuff. I feel for you. It's not easy. I know many people like this.
Where do I go when I need a doula's service or doula services?
There are a number of death doulas in LA. Although I'm a death doula, I call myself like a I've never received payment for being a death doula. I've always done it as a favor and volunteered myself and my services. There are a few, there's no real like central place to find the name of a death doula, but like I found on Instagram and things like that, death doulas and people of that nature. I found 3. And in fact, the program that I went through, her name was Alua Arthur. Her name is Alua Arthur. And she is like an outspoken death positive death doula in the LA area. She's probably too busy now to even take new clients, but they've probably got so many resources to find help like this. Also, like perhaps like a social worker that you know or work with, they might have like a friend, or they might be one if you like them. It's not a super organized, the death doulas, I think it's all personal and everybody's sort of their own advocate for their services, and they all do different things.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you. Someone asked, how close to death would one make a connection with a death doula?
That's personal, completely up to you. For instance, like if it's this kind of pragmatic stuff, you can get involved. You can meet somebody and do all this stuff pretty early. You don't have to be sort of at any stage, as early as you want them.
Someone asked, what resources are available for people with no family around?
No family. Well, the term, how I see family is, it's a loaded word. Some of us don't have family, but we have friends who are our family. We have neighbors who are like our family. We have people who we work with, or nobody with or without family, I think is, it doesn't mean you're alone. It means you might have to work a little bit harder to find those people to surround yourself with. Some family you wouldn't, there are some families that you wouldn't want anywhere near you during your last days. So in some ways you can feel thankful for that. But family is who you choose as your family. I think if you don't have any blood or like kin or next of kin or anything like that. And of course, as I always think, I feel like you are your own best advocate and your own best friend. So there's that. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is. Someone asked, what is the difference from doula and social worker services within the end of life period?
Well, a social worker is absolutely part of like most medical centers' health system. They are very helpful in organizing a lot of this stuff. They can't get into like most social workers. I mean, they can help with referrals to some of the care that you receive, like home, hospice, infusions at home and things like that. They sometimes help with orchestrating some of those or getting those passed, but they are not well, some of them. For the most part, a death doula is more helpful. They do vigils, for instance. They do some of the life reviews. The death doula is sort of like, I would think of it like as an extended family member that you sort of let into your house, help you go through stuff. Maybe even in some ways people, some death doulas help like escort people to their appointments and things like that. Or, you know, it's kind of like a companion. It's a companion. And it's somebody you've basically enlisted to be with you through whatever passage of time you've chosen. And social work, I think, is better equipped, or some of them are better equipped to deal with some of like the federal questions or medical questions or public service or veterans services and things like that. They have a lot more of like the complete landscape of programs and things. Some death doulas, you know, it's just a matter of experience and what we've educated ourselves on.
Perfect, thank you. We do have a few more questions. Someone asked, how would a death doula work alongside a hospice team?
As much or as little as you wish. They can work in conjunction with one another. Both teams are there to support you. Both teams are there to help you. And it's your guidance that can decide who does what. A hospice team is there to provide a lot of the, I would say, like, as we are non-medical, they're there to provide a lot of the medical assistance, pain medicine and things of that nature. They're there to help with some of the more fundamental aspects of dying and death. Some of the more, and death doula can help too, but death doulas are not equipped. They're not doctors. They're not nurses, you know, for the most part, they're not there to, I know in some cases, and we didn't really go into a lot of this, but the Death with Dignity Act, if a person has, I should have really covered this, but we can talk about it, maybe an email. If a person has chosen to end their life, the hospice team can actually help with that too. There's a whole protocol for basically physician-assisted suicide or euthanasia of yourself. It's not considered suicide. It has to be done by an adult, and there's a very, very strict way of doing this, which, you know, high level, you have to ask 3 times for it, 15 days apart. It's usually with your medical doctor. Anyway, the hospice team, if that was part of it, they would be some of the people who can help you with that as well.
Thank you so much for that. And our last question is, do you happen to know an average cost for doula services in LA? Maybe they're trying to figure out how they can start planning.
I guess, I mean, the range is, it could be anywhere. I mean, it could be, you know, $35 to $400 an hour. It depends on, I think, the service. It depends on what your terms might be, because this is all personal, and because it's like, there's no one size fits all for anybody's sort of time. It all depends on what you're asking them to help you with. So maybe $60, or I've seen things closer to that. Maybe an average being like $50 to $70 an hour. But again, there's also, like, for the most part, death doulas, we're here to help, and it's more about, for a lot of us, like we also have to have rent and food and all of those things, but sliding scales and stuff is something we absolutely would probably help with, knowing that people need our services and people need our help, and it's important. And perhaps like if you met a death doula and maybe they were too much for you, maybe you could ask for something like that. You know, I think it's based on the bond that you, like the feeling that you get from the person you're working with. Like for the most part, I did it for free because I love these people. I should have charged them. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's more about your your connection when you guys meet. I mean, you could meet a death doula that you're just like, I don't want you even near me at all. I can't stand this, your smell or your perfume or your language. It's all personal.
Thank you. And I'm just going to go ahead and read just one last comment because I think it's really a good one from somebody here. She said, I'm so grateful to have these trainings as death is such a taboo topic, and I really appreciate your positivity and care of our vulnerable loved ones.
My pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thank you. I think that was the last one. I just want to let everybody know that I did go ahead and put Rica's email address in the chat if you guys would like. You can also reach out to me at info@cancersupportla.org. Rica is kind enough to go ahead and share her presentation. If you guys are interested in a copy, go ahead and email me there. I'm going to go ahead and drop that email address as well in the chat for you guys to see. And I just want to thank you, Rica, for the information, for spreading more knowledge around this topic, for making it just a little bit, easier to talk about. Like the last person said, it's not an easy topic, but I think it's definitely something that should be talked about more. And I appreciate you and your time, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
And I'm sorry that I'm 10 minutes faster than the time we wanted.
You are definitely okay. Yeah, that was great. It was a great
I give you 10 more minutes to live your life.
That's right. We'll give you 10 more minutes back, everyone. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.